to leak information when matters are under investigation. I mean, it's agreeable to everybody. I don't think it's a criticism as such. But in matters which are monitored by the highest court in the land, the CBI has to go through a logical process of investigation, because they have to explain the various investigations expected to be handled by the CBI. And when during a preliminary investigation they find something has been gone wrong seriously, decisions have been overtaken and no justification is given on the file, so they have just registered an FIR. Well, whether the FIR is justified or not, it depends upon each case.
But I think the reason why it's raising eyebrows today, Ashok, is because of the timing, because the government and the PMO in particular finds itself on the back foot as far as the coal scam is concerned and the recent FIR is concerned. So when you look at these comments in that context, what do you make of it?
See, there are two things. I was at a conference in Mumbai over the weekend, and somebody there made a very telling point. He said the CBI and other such institutions, including the media, need to distinguish between fraud, error of judgment and plain bad luck. And I think the PM made that point today, and that is well taken. Having said that, how can he say that there is no evidence of malafide? Because in the case of the coal allocations, I'm not going into his role in particular, in the case of the coal allocations, coal mine after coal mine, coal block after coal block has been given to companies that did not deserve those coal blocks and have not used them properly. So how, and are owned by people who are related to senior politicians or ministers and so on. So how can he say there is no prima facie case of malafide? It has to be investigated. Second, he says there should not be any leaks to the media or to...
When an investigation is ongoing.
That's true. But there shouldn't be leaks to the government as well, and you shouldn't have a law minister calling in the CBI and saying, leak the information to me before you give it to the courts.
There was also another important point on the issue of the CBI's autonomy, Mr. Karthikeyan, and the Prime Minister made it clear that the CBI as an investigation agency comes under the executive, and that clearly it has operational autonomy, but on other matters it has to come under the political executive. There's been such a fierce debate, sir, about the autonomy for the agency at this point. The CBI has even told the Supreme Court that no one is willing to grant them even an inch of autonomy, and all political parties want a stranglehold over its functioning. But does the PM have a point? Can you have an agency, a police agency with all powers vested in it with absolutely no executive control?
So the Prime Minister also, I was there in the auditorium, he said as matters on investigation, nobody can interfere with investigation excepting the supervisory officers who are responsible to the court and to the ultimately. And he said no one can interfere in the investigation. He was talking about an oversight, and nobody says you give total freedom to CBI in every way of functioning. There is a need for an oversight, but the oversight mechanism should be credible, impartial, and people should have faith, the court should have faith that they are functioning in an impartial manner, not carrying out the mandate of the party in power.
And it is about a credible oversight mechanism at the end of the day. And again, these comments actually, when looked at, they make sense. You can't have a police agency which doesn't have a credible oversight. You can't have a police
agency which is completely autonomous, because with due respects, Mr. Karthikeyan was a great CBI director, but you may have a CBI director who goes wild and runs amok. So you can't have the CBI being completely autonomous. The CBI is a part of the Indian state as represented by the government, so on issues of salary, travel, all of that, it needs administrative supervision by the government. But the whole point is we are talking about power to and autonomy to investigate freely and fairly. That is a line the Prime Minister sort of dismissed.
Yes,
that's the point he dismissed in one line.
They have that freedom,
but that is at the heart of this whole debate over the CBI, not just in the past 2 years, but over the past several years, involving several governments. That autonomy has to be institutionalized, autonomy of investigation. And the appointment of the CBI director has to be a more bipartisan and independent process.
AVSEQ Singhvi joins us now from the Congress Party. Dr. Singhvi, the question is that the Prime Minister's criticisms of the CBI and its role come at a time, as we were just talking just before you came on, at a time when there's so much heat that he's facing on the coal issue. There was also a strange link that he drew between corruption and economic growth. Can you explain that for us? Because it actually sounds a little astounding to say that, well, you know, corruption isn't such a bad thing. It shows that we're growing as an economy.
Nidhi, allow me my minute or so, because there are lots and lots of misconceptions about a perfectly good and a normal speech. A storm in a teacup is sought to be made when the teacup doesn't even have a ripple. And there's a complete distortion in some quarters of the speech. And let me point out why. First of all, the Prime Minister has in fact endorsed the operational autonomy of the CBI, as you've just heard from other panelists. Secondly, anybody who suggests that a body like the CBI, or for that matter the CAG, the Election Commission, or a number of other constitutional bodies or even statutory bodies are not going to be accountable through some mechanism betrays a complete lack of ignorance about the kind of system we have. Look, a CBI is as accountable and has to be accountable for us to be a democracy ruled by law. Take for example, I gave the example in a parliamentary speech where I was dealing with the Lokpal Nidhi, and I pointed out that do you think that the CEC, the Election Commission, which is otherwise operationally completely independent, even its worst critics of the government say the EC is independent, functions under an administrative ministry? It has to, because the administrative minister then answers Parliament. For example, if the CEC tomorrow wants to travel to Timbuktu to address a gathering, he may require administrative permission from the ministry. That is the way accountability, otherwise he can't spend whatever he likes, he can't have a budget as he likes, he can't appoint anybody he likes without a system. That is very different from saying that the EC will take, and I'm now giving you deliberately the example of the EC, will take instructions about how to manage an election. That is the right balance our system has struck. And similarly the CAG, similarly the CEC, similarly the CBI must necessarily be accountable, otherwise you will end up having a Frankenstein monster. If the Prime Minister is accountable, the President of India is accountable, who has ever imagined that the CBI is in that sense unaccountable? But certainly, Nidhi, when you are having the court breathing down your neck on every comma and full stop, do you think it is possible to question the operational autonomy of the CBI?
But when he says a police agency should not sit in judgment over policy formulation without any evidence of malafide, is that a fair criticism of the CBI? Because have they really done that?
Absolutely.
And the point is, what Ranjit Sinha later said was that you have to make sure as policy makers that there is no impropriety on your part. The CBI is doing its job, then it's investigating.
Let me put it like this. Nidhi, it's an important question. First of all, this dialogue between institutions is vital, and I think it's a very civilized, necessary and useful dialogue between the Prime Minister representing the executive government and the CBI, which is completely operationally independent and autonomous. Completely, I repeat, especially in the high profile cases you're talking about. Secondly, the Prime Minister in fact pointed out a very valid point to make, and you can have a difference of opinion, and this was not meant only for the CBI. He was talking of institutional entities, including constitutional entities, none of which even self-professedly have any power to question policy or to make policy. They are to see that the policy is non-corruptly, fairly, correctly, non-discriminatorily implemented. So if you have a policy which says that this government believes that in a particular rare metal, which is very difficult to extract from the bowels of the earth, we will not even have a tender, but we will have by invitation the most technological savvy guy in the whole world to come and extract it. That policy cannot really be questioned easily.
Let me just bring in Ashok Malik in here. Has the CBI commented on that?
We are not talking of specific individual cases.
No.
No. We are not.
Is it a generalization that is being made?
We are not talking of individual cases.
No, but
of course, there are institutions, and I repeat, he was not talking of the CBI alone, which have questioned policy, which have said that policy A is better than B, and policy A being better than B would have resulted in lesser loss to the government, whereas for 20 years both NDA and Congress have followed policy A.
Ashok Malik wants to come in here. One second, Dr. Singhvi.
That's the problem.
Certainly policy issues should not be commented on by the CBI and the CAG. However, when a policy has been is shown to have
momentum shift going into the general elections.
I'll go further, Rajdeep. Going by your poll,
yes,
it's all over bar the shouting.
Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad is not being same in har and jeet.
Yes.
You can see that it's all over bar the shouting. He's self-congratulatory, he's patting on the back himself, and obviously he has won the CNN-IBN election just now. The national elections are over because CNN-IBN has clearly declared the winner. And I concede that there is nothing I can say if those figures are correct.
But
all I can say, Rajdeep, is that if we start doing this self-congratulatory, self-patting on the back, sometimes history teaches us, gives a nasty shock. I find it very strange that the very surveys, and I recollect being on several channels hardly a few months ago, not months, I would say just a couple of months ago, which gave a difference of less than 5 to 7 to 10 seats between BJP and NDA, or between NDA and the UPA.
There is a momentum shift.
One minute. Allow me to complete.
Please go ahead.
Allow me to complete. Rajdeep, use of supersonic adjectives like momentum don't create supersonic rockets of votes. If within 8 weeks you are showing from a 10-seat difference to a 60-seat difference, I think that itself is an internal contradiction. I am helpless in that I have no counter survey to show you. I have to proceed on your survey, and I am arguing this, as they say, on an assumption. So on this assumption, it's all over bar the shouting. I find it very amusing. And I'm reminded of 2004, when after 2004, for 3 years, most channels stopped doing polls. After what the 2004 opinion polls and the 2004 results showed.
Let me turn to Yogendra Yadav, and you can wear both hats, Professor Yadav, as a politician and a cephalogist. Would you concede that maybe things can change in the next 5 months? The example being given by Abhishek Manu Singhvi is of 2004. Or do you also sense a clear momentum shift in this election? In Delhi, we are seeing it in favor to some extent of the Aam Aadmi Party. In other states, we are seeing it towards the BJP. But anger against the centre appears to be benefiting in some states the BJP, in some states the Aam Aadmi Party. Or do you believe we are being a little bit premature?
Rajdeep, when I saw your July tracker, I thought the ruling party would take cue, advance the national elections and cut its losses. At that moment, I thought this would have been the smartest thing for the ruling party to do, go with general elections along with these things so that the losses could be cut. And what your current surveys are showing is just the lack of judgment exercised by the ruling party, because clearly things have got worse for it. In July, you were saying that there are massive losses for the UPA, but no corresponding gains for the